You're watching Q&As live from the Octagon Theatre in Perth. The next question comes from Hayley Davis.
Thank you, Tony. My question is for Bob Cronin. Bob, your newspaper this year opted out of the Australian Press Council in favour of developing your own complaints handling mechanism. I'm just wondering why the public should accept that your independent media council would be a better option for self-regulation than the Australian Press Council.
Bob Cronin.
Well, the reason, despite what you might have heard about why we pulled out of the Press Council, the simple reason that we pulled out of the Press Council was because the Press Council was proposing to accept government funding. Now, we don't believe that the government has any place in the regulation of the media. The media, I believe, needs to be accountable. And I mean, we are accountable every day to the readers, and if people don't like the paper or they don't buy it, if they don't like the television program...
Lots of choice here in West Australia.
Yeah, you've got...
Hundreds of papers to choose from.
You were telling me outside that you regularly read the Australian and the Financial Review.
On the weekend, yeah.
Now, I don't want to give a plug to News Limited, but, you know, there you go. There is choice.
Hey, Bob, you mentioned comments you might or might not have made. You've actually have talked quite a lot about the chairman of the Press Council, Julian Disney, and you actually said the council has become a cudgel for zealots, bigots, academics and despotic politicians.
Yes.
What's the evidence for that?
Well, you just need to have a look at the sort of people who complain. You see, that one of the problems with... One of the problems with...
You're talking about readers?
No. No, I'm not. Because most of the readers, 99.9% of the readers, never complain. You very rarely get a complaint that goes to the Press Council from an ordinary citizen in the suburbs.
Well, they're too sensible. They know it doesn't do anything.
Oh, doesn't it?
Well, they don't. I mean...
What is the evidence for that?
Well, you know, there certainly is a problem with having government regulating the media, but we've got to look at... there is a problem, but there's got to be a way through this, because I think we've got to look at how the press can be used, and the media generally, to suborn democracy. And you looked at Rupert Murdoch, and I think a lot of the analysis of Murdoch was wrong. They didn't get to the fundamental problem. It's the way he actually used his power over politicians, and they were absolutely scared of him.
He's an American.
Sorry?
He's an American.
He's an Australian English American. But they were and he used that to further a whole range of business interests that had nothing to do with media. And this is, I think, part of the problem, is the way in which politicians then can be terrified of taking a position that the newspaper is going to be critical of, because...
God, what a mob of wussy politicians.
Well, I mean, hold on. I mean... Not all of us did.
No,
I mean, I remember putting out a press release, and this became our motto. Was it true, or did you read it in the West?
As much as you two are a brilliant comic duo, I'm going to hear from Premier Barnett on this. Are you one of those despotic politicians?
No, I don't think so. Not at all.
So what do you think about regulation of the media? And the government, the federal government, has a plan potentially to have a federally funded regulator.
Yeah, I don't like that. I think journalism is a profession. Self-regulation is the way to go, and as long as the accountability there. And the ultimate accountability is, do you buy the newspaper? Do you watch the channel?
Absolutely.
You know, we all have the choice.
Dead right.
Well, someone just said there's not much choice when it comes to newspapers in Western Australia.
You know, get Foxtel, there's plenty of choice.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
Let's hear from Bob Brown.
Well, look, fair go. Doctors are regulated by a medical council, lawyers are, nurses are, teachers are, but the media, as we've just heard from the editor, wants to be a law unto itself. There is an Australian Journalist Code of Ethics drawn up by journalists, and all I say is simply make sure that's invoked, that you don't invade the privacy of grieving people, that you do give an instant response to people who are attacked, that when you're wrong, you immediately say so in equal terms. These things should be par for the course with a decent media. I can't understand why all this resistance. Had that journalist code of ethics required to be implemented, they drew it up, they should implement it. It's as simple as that.
Okay, we've got another, thank you. Another question on this subject generally in any event from Nicoletta Ciafalili.
Thank you, Tony. We complain about the level of debate in Parliament being of a poor standard, but often the reporting in mainstream media is just as poor, being sensationalist, alarmist and biased. My question is, much of the Australian public is so frustrated by this that it no longer buys the West Australian and turns to other outlets for information such as the Global Mail. So when will mainstream media realise this and become a leader in intelligent collaborative discussion?
Bob Cronin, I'll come to you in a moment. I just want to hear from Hannah McGlade on that question. Do you think, I think the suggestion was the public are being treated like cretins.
Well, I have to admit that I did see a retraction in the West last week. I think the comments of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, there was a misrepresentation that he'd said that Aboriginal kids should be locked up, you know, basically, and our Chief Justice is one to actually talk about rehabilitation and intervention. So it was good to see the West pick that up, and, you know, I was really nicely surprised about the Sunday Times on the weekend too, actually. I thought it was some excellent journalism, so, yeah, no, it's not as bad as it seems.
Bob Cronin, vote of support.
Well, I think, well, yes, thank you, Hannah. That's very good. You should be a politician. I mean, the policy of the West Australian, anyway, is that if we are wrong, we correct it. And it's been said, you know, we sometimes disagree with the Press Council. Well, we always disagree with the Press Council because if we believed that we had made a mistake, we would have corrected it before it ever got to the Press Council.
I think the questioner,
but you need an
the questioner is
independent
suggesting
arbiter,
that
and we abide by
the
it.
questioner seems to be suggesting she doesn't think you're making very good use of your right to publish.
Well, you know, we're a commercial enterprise, and if you don't make good use of your right to publish, you end up without any readers, and fortunately that hasn't happened to us. In fact, our circulation in the last 5 audits has gone up on Monday to Friday.
I noticed, Nicoletta, the questioner shaking her head. Do you want to respond to that?
So my understanding was I thought there had been a shift and buyers of the newspaper were going down, but online I think was changing perhaps.
Well, I think the problem with that proposition is that most of the online websites are published by newspaper publishers in this country. And so, you have the same standard of journalism in print as you have online. I don't see there's any difference there.
But I think a lot of the online publishers actually have a different point of view in the way that they actually report. And I think people are saying, and I hear lots of people saying, that really the type of reporting that happens in the West and other mainstream is not accurate. Often it is very biased, it is alarmist, and we're not getting good reporting of the issues that are important to people. We want reporters to actually question parliamentarians about important issues and move away from some of the personality discussions that is often reported. I think we're sick of that. I think we really want to understand the issues better. Tell us about those things. Highlight what are the differences, where are they the same. I think that's what's missing.
Alana McKinnon.
I totally understand what your point and how frustrating it is not to be able to read, in-depth analysis in the way that you would want. But to be fair to Bob, I mean, his paper is not as nutso as it was when we were in government. Their editor came from the News of the World, where he used to write, the editor at the time, where he used to write communist aliens stole my baby type stories. And then he had to sort of... But I think part of the problem, and I think we're a bit unfair just blaming the media here, because I think the media is, to some extent, a reflection of the society. And unfortunately, a lot of people, that's why, you know, the red tops, you know, sell so much, because a lot of people just want crap, you know, quite frankly. I was talking to some Swiss businessmen one day, and they'd actually come from Italy to go and live in Switzerland, and they were commenting how fantastic the media was in Switzerland compared to the Berlusconi papers, and they were saying no Swiss would accept that media. They just wouldn't, you know, they have too much self-respect. And so I think that we can't just blame the media. I mean, we do have to understand that there's something going on in our society, and it is very worrying for our democracy, because if people don't want to actually think about things, it's going to be really hard to sustain a good quality democracy.
All right, a final word to Bob on this. Do the public get the media they deserve?
Well, I think they do, and I take Alana's point that it is worrying to me that it seems that a lot of people these days are just simply not interested in the issues. They're interested in the trivia, and I'm sure the Premier would understand that from trying to get his policies out there, that, you know, people, to me, just seem to be not interested anymore. And that's a big worry for the democracy.
Well, this is Q&A. We're live in WA.